Roy, before we get down to business and talking about everything to do with connectivity and digital, I always like to hear about what people's first digital moments were, the time when you looked at it and thought, oh, this is going to change the world, this gadget or this thing that's going to happen. What was yours?
Oh, wow. I'm trying to remember that far back, to be perfectly honest. It was probably about 35 years ago.
Wow.
When I got my first mobile phone.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I can remember it arrived on a Saturday morning, and then by a Monday evening, it was cut off because the bill had ran up so much. I was trying to call people and didn't realise the cost of it. So my first mobile was the first sort of insight into the changing face of technology and just how much it can cost if you're not careful.
Yeah, well, I remember that. You had to pay for text, didn't you? Every text that you send.
And a call per minute was about £5, and you don't realise that. Yeah. It cost me about £1,200 for the handset, and then about £5 per minute thereafter.
Goodness me, we've moved on some since then, haven't we?
Thankfully.
Quite amazing. So fast forwarding then to where we are now, I mean, you've adopted the whole idea of connectivity and digital marketplace as your business. You're now running Connectus, which is a leading business in the digital and connectivity world. So how did you get to that point?
Well, it's growing like Billy-O at the moment. And, my background, I came into technology, about 30 years ago, really working for the world's first ASP, which we all now know as a software as a service provider, but application service providers back in the day. And I can remember working for a company where we revolutionised the space where you could download an application to your handset or to your laptop rather than waiting for the CD-ROM manuals through the post or nipping down the high street to get it. And that was just fascinating. And it's just grown from there. I've worked for some big global brands all around the world. Got sick and tired of working for other people. Got told to hang my passport up by my wife when we started a family. And the previous business we sold to Aviva. Connectus, I've been in there since 1999 now. 2019, sorry. And to say it was a dull and broken business was probably an understatement. And to where we are now is remarkable, really, given the way that technology moves so fast.
So, and what has been, because it has been moving at a breathtaking speed, what has been the challenge then? Because in that field, you have to be on your game all the time, I imagine. What's been your challenges for that?
You do. I think people's the biggest challenge. Trying to find the right people in the right locations with the right skill set and the right mentality is really, really difficult. You know, when we bought this business, there were 3 founding directors that we exited 2 of them because they just wanted to retire. They'd worked hard all their life and they deserved to go and have a rest. We retained one of them. We had 2 engineers, one of which we exited from the business because they didn't believe in the vision that we had, and one stayed. Where we are now with 20-odd people. Originally, we only had 120 customers, I think it was at the time. Now we've got 550. And I think a lot of it is to do with businesses have to adapt, they have to change, they have to harness technology. Otherwise, they'll just stagnate and die.
That's really interesting, isn't it? Because everything that you've mentioned is that they're the same challenges that so many businesses face, regardless of what sector you're in. But your sector changes at such a pace. You can't afford to linger with that, can you? You just have to carry on going.
You're right, Mark. And, every business that we've been involved with, it's typically the same challenges. Finding the right people, making sure that the business is well funded, looking at the priorities, looking at what is the strategic plan for the business. Because I think people go into business with an idea, they're going to build something, they're going to sell it really quick and made a mountain of cash. It is not that easy. It's tough, hard yards running a business. And it's not for the faint-hearted. In the early days when we had the previous business, I had loads and loads of sleepless nights. And, I stupidly, and I am going to say stupidly, personally guaranteed a £1.3 million investment line into the business. And I didn't even tell my wife.
Oh.
When she found out, that was an interesting debate at home. But it paid off, fortunately.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying
fortunately for you, I think.
Fortunately for me, yeah. And I'm not saying everybody should do that, Mark. You shouldn't. But being absolutely sure on what you're doing and making sure that you've got a good, solid strategic plan in place for the forthcoming years, and we measure in days. We always have a 1,000-day plan in place, because tomorrow it's 999 days. The day after it's 998. It focuses the mind to do the right things.
That's so interesting that in order to do that, it's about, I suppose, what you're describing is the idea that sometimes the time is now. You have to do it. You have to respond and react to what's going on around you, the market that's going on around you. I mean, taking a guarantee out like that, that's a big step. I'm not sure I would advise anyone to do that. But of course, you can't have a plan B if you're going to be committed to your plan A, can you? And 100%.
No, you can't. And I think if you've got a sensible approach to things, if you've got a viable plan, you get the people around you to input into the plan. That's your employees, your customers, your suppliers. If they understand what you're trying to achieve, they're more likely to embrace it, more likely to support you. And we've been really fortunate with that with Connectus. You know, for us to go from 2 employees to 20, from 120 customers to 550 in 5 years has just been remarkable. And some of it's been organic, some of it's been through acquisition, some of it's by introducing new products and services. You know, we do an awful lot around cybersecurity now, an awful lot around hosting and the cloud delivery, working off the basis of, if you've got good, strong connectivity foundations, it's the heart of your business, so you can build from there.
And that's really, you know, having the knowledge and the idea of that way before anyone else puts you ahead of the curve, I suppose, which is why you would run something like Connectus. Because even now, you were talking about giving the customers what they want, making sure that you can deliver what they need. It's really important, I feel, about the language that's used. I mean, I want to get into this now. I want to get into this connectivity, because we keep throwing words like that around, us lay people, not people who are in that. And we talk about, and I've recently used the word VoIP a lot. And I know that I'm overdoing it when I get home and you know, my wife says to me, what on earth are you talking about? What's VoIP, for goodness sake? So what is it? What is VoIP? And is that the future? And what are the things we should be looking out for now when we're talking about making sure our businesses are well connected?
Well, I think, you know, when you look at the tech space, there's more acronyms in the tech space than you can shake a stick at. You know, and trying to keep up with new and emerging technologies is really, really difficult. And it can prove difficult for us as a business. That's why we spend a lot of time with research companies, with our vendor partners. We have one person dedicated in the business purely looking at our roadmap. So it really is difficult, even for a tech company, to keep up and back the right technologies that the customers will adopt going forward. Voice over IP or VoIP, Voice over Internet Protocol, it's basically the next generation of telecommunication voice services. Right. So if you look at legacy copper lines, they're using obviously dated technology now. It's costly to maintain. BT are obviously got the big switch off of copper circuits looming. Whether or not they're going to achieve it on time, we don't know. So everybody is moving to more digital services such as VoIP.
So what does that mean when you, because I've heard that also, BT is switching off copper services. So what does that actually mean? I pick up the phone rings, I pick it up. What does that mean? Well,
if you're operating on a copper broadband network, which is typically a lot slower than fibre optical networks, which is the next generation of connectivity, it basically means that your old analog telephone at home or in your office or in lifts, for argument's sake, where lifts have a telephone, they're typically analog telephones. They will not work. They'll just cease to work. And that's why, OpenReach and a lot of other carriers now are spending, hundreds of millions of pounds, if not billions of pounds, on the switchover, making sure that people do move over to fibre and adopt more digital voice over IP and IP-related services.
That's quite business critical then, really. If they're going to switch it off, you walk in one morning and your phone's dead.
That's frightening, yeah.
That's a big thing for a business.
Yeah, but you see, again, a lot of businesses, they've got so many things on their plate, managing people, managing cash flow, cost of living crisis, raging inflation, high interest rates. I know that's changing slowly, but, the economy is still quite fragile at the moment. So trying to convince people that, hey, you need to invest in this new technology because eventually the legacy stuff that you're using is going to be obsolete. It's going to turn off. It's not going to allow you to run your business. They have other priorities until it's a priority. And they'll wake up one morning, as you rightly point out, and the phone lines won't work. And we'll go to them and say, we told you so, you didn't listen.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, but maybe we just couldn't hear it because we had so much other stuff going on at the time. Perhaps that's the...
Yeah, but
it's an important message. That,
it is. But you've got, in every business and in every market, you've always got that early adopter. So we target a lot of early adopters for our services. You get to mass market, crossing the chasm, classic sort of MBA stuff. You get into that mass market where most of the market is using the latest and greatest technology. And then you've got the laggards who do it right at the last minute, who are risk averse, who typically don't want to invest the money into the things that they should be investing. It's almost like when you had the first fax machine, you couldn't send a fax to anybody because nobody had one.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I guess.
Or going back to when I first bought my mobile phone 35 years ago, there wasn't a great deal of people to call because nobody had them.
And I remember being on listening to otherwise, you would call them business leaders on platforms at conferences saying, this internet thing, don't worry, it's just a fad, it'll go away. So, you have to listen to all the voices, don't you, really?
You know what, Mark? I was out in California in not too long ago, actually, in sort of years terms, 1998, all right? So it seems like an eternity ago for some people. Some people maybe listening to this weren't even born at the time. And my boss at the time stood on stage and he said, one day in the not too distant future, you will buy theatre tickets online, you will buy airline tickets online, you'll book your holidays online. And he got laughed off the stage. Nobody believed his vision. My goodness, was he right?
Absolutely. I mean, you can't imagine it now, can you? A business, your personal life. They say that having a strong connectivity, Wi-Fi, or being able to connect to the internet is now another one of Maslow's hierarchies. It's an absolute essential for everyone. It's almost like a human right to be able to have a connection to the internet.
Well, Kofi Annan, when he was in the UN, actually said it is a basic human right. And we've done quite a bit of work in student accommodation. You can turn the water off, nobody will complain. You turn the Wi-Fi off, there is civil war. There really is. And also from a business, a lot of the applications that you use, whether it's accounting software, email, CRM, the vast majority is now web-based. It's a cloud-based application. So we spend, the last statistics I saw was 86% of our working day actually online within a browser environment. And that opens you up to all sorts of threats. One, can you connect to the internet to get the speeds that you need to be able to run your business? Two, can you collaborate with other people, either in your office or in your customer base or your supply chain? And how safe is it to do so? There's a lot of horrible things lurking out there ready to attack your business.
And I want to come to that because I think that's a big worry of mine, the cybersecurity and how all this change. Are we keeping up with the threats that are out there? But just before we get on to that, the changeover into VoIP and how fast things are moving. What about the equipment that we have? I mean, people have invested with switchboards and phone lines and phones for their offices. Is it going to be an expensive business for businesses to swap over?
Well, it could be. It could well be expensive. It doesn't have to be if you plan it right and you look at the right technology, work with the right partners. There's loads of great partners out there, loads of managed service providers, VoIP providers. Choosing the right one to work with you and your business is important, but engage early. If you engage late, it's going to cost you more money because it's all knee-jerk. Knee-jerk in terms of the cost that you incur with your partners, your internal costs of moving and migration. There's been a lot of change in the hardware landscape as well within the UK marketplace. So you used to have huge market leaders like Huawei, and since the Chinese debacle, Huawei is very, very limited in its use now across the UK. It's not very well supported, so people who've got legacy Huawei switching and equipment will find themselves really on a hiding to nothing. There's quite a few new fresh challenges coming in from the US and from Eastern Europe, which have cost-effective solutions. And then you've got the bigger boys like Cisco Meraki, which will cost you an arm and a leg. It's very, very expensive, and it's not for everybody.
And things have changed. Well, that's the thing. Not everyone needs the Rolls Royce of what's available, I suppose. We learned that when we were first digitizing and getting computers into our workplace. So I suppose really the idea should be that we keep a watching brief on it, because things between now and 6 months' time from now will change. What's available, what equipment's there. So it's keeping being educated about what's available and keeping on top of it.
Well, I think, business owners, and again, of all sizes and natures, need to think what would happen if our computers or our telephones didn't work, or we couldn't get on the internet when we come in on a Monday morning. You just grind to a halt.
Absolutely.
So there'd be no revenue generated. You couldn't liaise with customers. You couldn't pay your staff. You couldn't pay your suppliers. You would grind to a halt.
I mean, I've witnessed that myself. A couple of our businesses that we know have had ransomware attacks on their systems. They were very small businesses. It was not as if they're great big, international organisations. And from the morning they went in, and it took about 3 days to recover, they absolutely had nothing, because they were completely reliant, whether it was just on emails or all their systems were reliant on being able to access their computers and to be able to get onto the internet, and they couldn't. Well, and it was a very difficult time for them.
I'd say congratulations to whoever it was to be able to get back up and running within 3 days, because it usually takes an awful lot longer. And we've come across companies that have come to us when we've been speaking to them previously, and they'll only come to us when they were having a problem. So they've been hit with a breach, they don't know what to do, and they are at a standstill. And what research we've come across just recently is most SMEs are, one, ill-equipped to deal with a breach. So when it happens, what do? Who do they call? There's no Ghostbusters, is there? Yeah. They call their accountant, they call the lawyer, but they can't really help. They call the police. Well, the police, whilst they're busy and they do a good job, obviously police in the UK, they're not particularly interested, because how would you prove who's done it, who's perpetrated that crime? This is not somebody next door that's just come and knocked on the door and said, hey, I'm just going to hack you. It could be somebody on the other side of the world. So you've got all sorts of challenges there.
I mean, that is such a, in every business that I speak to, there's that worry in the back of their mind. You can tell every time you talk about cybercrime, or we hear it on the news, or there's been a big event that's made the national news, you can feel it, that people are just, it's almost as if we're waiting. I hope it doesn't happen to us, because we're not really sure what we've put some things in place, but we're not really sure whether we're safe or not. So with all of this change going on, and us moving over into VoIP and the growth in our whole reliance on digital, are we less safe now? Is our data less safe now than it ever was?
Far more so. It comes back to the point that I made earlier. You spend, plus 85% of your time, your professional time, on the web, using web-based and cloud-based applications. It's the same at home. You give an awful lot of personal information away on social media unwittingly. Social engineering is becoming a major issue when it comes to cybercrime. Phishing and phishing attacks, ransomware. There's loads and loads of things out there that can hurt a business. It's like saying there's only one disease that's ever going to kill mankind. Well, there isn't. There's hundreds of thousands. It's the same as there's hundreds of different ways you can perpetrate a cybercrime against a business. The problem that we often find, though, Mark, is smaller businesses adopt the attitude, it won't happen to me. We make widgets, we make window frames, we're a joinery business. Well, if that's the view, that's fine, if that's the risk that you want to adopt. And they think, well, we've got no sensitive information, but you have your employees' information, their bank details, their medical records, their next of kin contact information. What about your suppliers? What about your customers? What about all their bank details? That's without looking at any type of IP that you've got within the business. So all of a sudden you come in on a Monday morning, you're locked out of everything. Yeah, you'll soon know what's important.
Yeah.
And I've known companies pay the ransom and still not get their data back. So it really is a very precarious situation when you get a breach. What do you do to absolutely resolve that breach? So for me, it comes back to the age-old adage that prevention is far better than cure. And I think SMEs also are afraid of the cost. They think it's really, really expensive to protect themselves. It's not. It really isn't. A lot of it is common sense, actually. You don't need to spend a huge amount of money on technology. So for us, it's about people and educating your people in the right way, in the right manner, and making sure that they're vigilant about the information they give out and respond to. It's about your technology systems. Yeah, are they robust? Are they patched right in the right way? There's no vulnerabilities. But also about process. So if all of a sudden I send you an email, Mark, purporting to be somebody else saying, will you send me £10,000 to pay this invoice, or something drastic is going to happen to the business, especially if it's a Friday afternoon, you tend to panic. Yeah. And that's what happens for us as prey on the least point of resistance, which is typically people, process, or technology.
Absolutely. And I suppose people, this idea that it couldn't happen to them for the reasons of that we're a small business. And in fact, we had a client who had done a really clever test. They'd left a thumb drive around, a few of them around, after training their staff not to plug in anything into their system. And about half the staff picked it up and plugged it into their system because they could track it, what was there. Yeah. And it just goes to show how vulnerable we are, even with training. A lot of it comes down to common sense and to people in the end.
Yeah, but thumb drives for me, I mean, years ago, they were quite useful. You do not need a thumb drive in your business anymore.
No.
Ban them. You don't need. Why do you need a thumb drive? You can archive emails off. You can archive data off. You can share data with lots of great secure tools that's out there now. Why have a thumb drive? It's pointless.
That's true. That's true. You still see a lot of them floating around, though, don't you? It's
not in our office.
Providing presentation. I would hope not in Connectus.
I think we'd smash one with an hammer if we ever saw it.
Joe, that's a bit extreme, but okay. The idea about security, just before we leave that bit, I'm really interested in the idea that we've moved so much of our information from our hard drives on our PCs at work, and now we access nearly everything on our phone as well. So I look at that device and think, well, that's not very well protected. They might have a little AVG tab on there somewhere that says they're protected. I don't know if that's right or not, but all their information is there. Yeah. Is that a vulnerability?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look at the average smartphone these days, it's more powerful than the first the computer that created the trip to the moon.
Yeah, I've heard that.
It's a small computer that you have in your pocket. The last photograph that you took, Mark, the last email that you took, where did you send it from? Where did you take that photograph? On your phone.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Where's that photo now? Probably up in your cloud. Yeah, just on your phone, is it? Yeah. So protecting your handset is really, really important. And, one of the big things that we speak to all of our customers about is doing exactly that. We've got a very large pharmaceutical company that we work for on a global basis, and we ship probably about 150 handsets a month for these guys, and none of them go out without having any security on them. So we can remote monitor those phones, we can remote wipe those phones, we can render them absolutely useless, if they're ever lost or stolen. So the data is intact, because you not only got the data on your handset, it's actually an access device into your network, into your corporate life and your personal life.
Absolutely, and personal life in particular as well, because you've got all of your messages, your family messages, they talk about WhatsApp being so secure, but it's not secure if someone's got access to your phone.
It's not. Well, think about your bank account as well.
Yeah,
it's on your phone.
That's very true. Yeah, that's very true. So it can be quite scary. It really can. Really can. All right. So let's just talk a little bit about something that's coming up over the horizon a lot now, and that's the use of AI tools. I don't know how you think about that. We've been hearing a lot from some of our experts about how to use AI tools, and it seems to me a lot of people are now downloading a lot of things to help them be better at their job. So we're not talking about Terminator AI things. We can leave that to the conspiracy theorists. But nonetheless, AI seems to be really ramping up. Is that affecting your world?
I welcome it, to be perfectly honest. And AI is not something new. I can remember when I was in BT 25 years ago, and we were using neural networks to detect good, bad, and indifferent behaviour. So we could build an individual thumbprint of 45 different characteristics down to an individual person using the network. And we were processing billions of events per day from various operators around the world. So again, all as it's become with technology, it's become more and more sophisticated. So if you look at AI, I don't think people should be afraid of it, but harnessed in the correct way, it can be very, very powerful. I think what we're seeing at the moment is you've got the early adopters, going back to what we were talking about earlier, that are getting some really good results from it because they're starting to understand where to deploy it, what the risks are associated with deploying it and how to overcome those risks. You can't all of a sudden just go out and start using OpenAI or Copilot or whatever it may be that you're using without really understanding the purpose of it and what data it's looking at. So it's either looking at internal data or it's looking at data out on the web. So you've really got to be careful about how you deploy it and why you're deploying it. So I think that as companies become more and more accepting of the use of AI and not as frightened of it, because one of the big obstacles that I keep coming across is going to create redundancy. Well, it probably isn't, because you'll just utilize that resource elsewhere, or you'll get better results by selling more, by using AI to predict better behavior in your buying trends or your selling trends, or making content more compelling. So I think that's the first areas that people are starting to use it around: research, rewriting content, and mining data. And that can be very, very powerful. But then you've got the unscrupulous side of things. A friend of mine sent me a video clip over the weekend, and it was one of the sovereign wealth funds out of the Middle East saying that they're invested into Connectus, billions of pounds, because of our cyber and our AI capabilities, which is complete nonsense. However, if it wasn't sent to me and I didn't see it, if it was just published out on the internet, people would have believed it because it's so convincing.
It's people do need to be aware now of that, don't they? How to spot certain things particularly in video. It's becoming so clever, and you can't believe everything you see now on video.
No, you can't. But this all started years ago with some very crude deep fakes, and they've just become more and more and more sophisticated. So much so, a lot of these boil house scam setups in the Far East and whatever that are preying on UK citizens and UK businesses are very, very convincing. The difference is it's not a human anymore. It's AI doing the work. So it's even more convincing.
So it's another case of we just need to educate ourselves, really, don't we? We need to keep ahead. Any business needs to keep ahead of that particular curve. We need to be aware of what's going on. We can't just bury our heads in the sand and hope that it won't affect us. And someone said to me about AI, it's not artificial intelligence. It's just intelligence from another source and another coming at you from a different route. No one we already had that intelligence. It's just being collated. And that's a bit more of a secure way of thinking about it, I suppose. This is intelligence out there that's brought together.
Yeah, I think it is. When you first deploy any type of AI, it's looking at your internal data first. Yeah. So that data already exists. It's just looking at it in a more meaningful manner so you can make and arrive at much more informed decisions quicker than what you used to be able to.
We've just got to keep ahead of it. I think it's a real opportunity at the growth of AI. I used to be worried about it. I'm now more convinced that it's a force for good if we stay ahead of it. Because seeing some of the wonderful things it's doing in the NHS and things that it's doing for businesses and for the efficiency of businesses is amazing. And I think if you look at the report from Davos recently, it talks about certainly there'll be some job losses, but the amount of job creation that AI will bring, completely different jobs, will far outstrip any job losses that come as a result of it.
That's exactly right, Mark. I used to look at AI a little bit sceptical, bearing in mind I've been around artificial intelligence for 20-odd years. And I look at it now with a huge amount of excitement. Where can this take us next? And that's the exciting part. And that's the exciting part of being the chief exec of Connectus is, our roadmap for technology. Technology moves at such a rapid pace. And, we've got all sorts of different shapes and sizes of clients, from international airlines and shopping centres and elite sports clubs, all the way down to two guys in a chocolate Labrador running a scaffolding business. And it's just fantastic to be able to harness technology that's going to help them and drive their businesses forward. It's really exciting.
Well, and that's the key, isn't it? We have to. There's companies like yours out there. Connectus is getting involved with people like Connectus to learn, for a small business owner to learn what's coming over the horizon, what is a threat and what is an opportunity, just to get more involved with that. That involves sitting and speaking to people like your team, I suppose, and saying, well, what is it? You don't have to be scared of it. You don't have to be scared of finding out information, but just find it out.
Well, it's like anything, education's a great thing, isn't it? And I wish my parents had told me that early when I was at school. It took me a while to realise that. But tomorrow, we're running a third Predator series event over at Yorkshire Wildlife Park. So a Predator trilogy, you could call it if you're in the film industry, I suppose. And this is all about education. Educating our customers, our partners, prospects, and businesses around the area around the advances in technology around cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, connectivity, and what is the art of the possible. And you can see when we've done these events previously that people come in with a very skeptical view, crossed arms, quite negative body language, thinking these guys are just trying to sell me something, and when they realise actually that they could harness a lot of this technology for their own good and for the protection of their business and also their families. It really is eye-opening to lift the shroud and remove some of the rhetoric around some of this things.
Yeah, there's a lot of myths out there, isn't there? A lot of pub talk about what happens with AI and technology generally, I suppose.
Exactly. You are going to get a lot of people jumping on the bandwagon of cyber and the same as AI and starting up businesses and probably starting them up ill-informed and thinking they can become a specialist overnight. I read, there was a documentary on TV a while ago, and it was about a pianist. And they said to become a real expert pianist, it was 10,000 hours of practice. Wow. 10,000 hours. So you imagine that's to play a piano and to play whatever it is that you're playing. You imagine trying to learn about cybersecurity and about artificial intelligence with all the nuances that has. You can't become an expert overnight. You just can't. No. So having the people around us that we've got in Connectus and some of our backgrounds is quite compelling, really.
And a bit better than listening to Jeff down at the pub who's just heard that somebody did this and this is the way to get here.
Well, you're always going to get a Jeff somewhere. a Jeff or a Karen.
Yeah, for sure. I reckon so. Okay, so we've covered so much ground here. If I was a business listening to this and I could take from a person who's leading in this field, what would you say? Look, here are three things. If you're running a business, here are three things you need to get onto this now, tomorrow. You need to get onto this for your business, either to keep it secure or to help it grow in this sector. What would you recommend?
Well, I think it is planning for the future, and don't think that or have the mentality, it can't happen to me. It's not a case of that. And it's not a case of if it happens, it's a case of when it happens, because something will go wrong. And it's how you react, how you can respond to that in terms of business continuity, disaster recovery. If your building burnt down, you'd have a plan for that. You'd be insured. Well, why not get cyber insurance? A lot of people still don't have cyber insurance. A lot of companies don't have the basic accreditations that GCHQ lay down of Cyber Essentials or Cyber Essentials Plus. For £600 a year, why not invest in that type of process and that type of accreditation, which would lower the risk within the business and also lower your insurance premiums? I just can't understand why people don't do that. And I think it's only going to be a matter of time. It is starting to happen now, actually, Mark. If you want to work on public sector or high-value supply chain contracts, you have to have Cyber Essentials or Cyber Essentials Plus to take part in those tenders or that supply chain. So if you look at HS2, most public authorities, local authorities, all insist upon that. Okay. So again, if you want to keep working with those people, you're going to have to be mindful of that.
That's real business critical stuff, though, isn't it? Even if you're a third-tier supply chain, you're going to have that.
It is, and I think ultimately, I don't think we're too far away that the government will mandate some type of cyber accreditation, cyber insurance in order for trading, like professional indemnity or public employers' liability. I think if that comes in, then things will change dramatically, and I don't think it's too far away, to be honest.
And the last thing you want to be doing is suddenly rushing to keep up when everybody else is doing the same thing, because things get expensive.
But I also, respect that people have got businesses to run. So, if you've got a joinery company or a window fitting company, a construction company, a financial services company, and there are vertical sectors that's more at risk than others, admittedly. Mm-hmm. Focus on running your business. Bring somebody in and work with a partner to make sure that you've got the adequate protection in place. If I wanted to build a house, I wouldn't try and build it myself. I'd call an architect, I'd call a builder. because they are experts in their field. Stick to your knitting, run your business, and partner with people that's capable of supporting you.
I mean, that's timeless advice, isn't it? I remember saying that to people who were trying to do their own accounts as their business was growing. And it would take them hours to do it, and they would do it wrong. But you give it to a bookkeeper or an accountant, they do it in half an hour, and it would be accurate, and it would be the right thing. So I suppose the same applies, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's false economy, isn't it?
Yeah. You think you're saving time or money, rather, and you don't. Okay, so look, just bringing this into a question. There's a last question that I want to ask you, and because you've been in this for a while now, and you've been involved in many different projects. So I'm going to put you on the spot here. What is the most, let's say, either scary or exciting project in the digital world that you've worked on from the time you started up to now?
Oh, wow. That is a scary one. I think one of the most eye-opening projects that I ever worked on was way back, sort of 25, 30 years ago, when we were analysing all the data out of a major Middle Eastern carrier, and there were billions of events per day going on there. And understanding the huge volumes of data, it had never been done before, and we called them cubes of data back then, was quite opening. 1 billion events per day. That's a huge amount of data. And I think that really sticks in my mind because it was quite scary, it was quite panicky at times, it was quite intense. So taking that learning now into Connectus with some of the projects that we work on, we work on some real mission critical stuff. If you look at what we're doing for the government in the maritime sector, if you look at what we're doing in aviation, and there's an airport not too far from where I'm sat now with you, Mark, that's about to reopen. Yeah. That's an exciting project that we're working on. But you've got to get that right because people's lives depend on it. All of a sudden your systems don't work, or you can't get the connectivity that's needed, or there's a cyber breach, or there's any type of other security scare. We've got to be able to respond to that and respond, with proven processes and with some gusto.
Wow. That's quite a somber note for us to take back. I think it really underlines the idea that the responsibility lies with us. We've just got to get on with this, haven't we? Make it happen.
Yeah, we're in a big digital world, and your next door neighbour could be halfway around the world. You just don't know.
Excellent. That's a grand note to end on. Roy, thank you so much, and I wish you and Connectus the best of luck. And I, for one, am really pleased you're out there getting ahead of the curve and making sure that businesses have an opportunity to do the same.
No.
Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you for inviting me, Mark.
No problem. Cheers.
Bye.